Reports have just been released saying that Patrick Williams has gone down with another injury. We're also going to discuss another trade suitor for the Bulls and potentially Zach LaVine later on in this video. I'm your host, Joey Mercer. This is another episode of Bulls Digest. And before we get into it there today, I just want to say that about 85% of you that watch these videos are not subscribed to the channel. So if you aren't already subscribed to the channel, make sure to go down below, hit that subscribe button, turn on the bell for notifications, and every single time we upload, you will be able to stay up to date with our takes on your favorite team, the Chicago Bulls. So without further ado, let's get in the first topic at hand there today, and that is Williams out again. So it hasn't been any big injuries, but it seems to be there are some lower body things that are ailing Patrick Williams. He hasn't been the most productive consistently, and his shooting has really taken a dip where it's been up and down all over the place with if he's shooting really well from three or really poor. A lot of this, I think, has to do with the injuries he's dealt with on his foot and ankle, and we are getting another report of that from ESPN. This one is from Jamal Collier and says Bulls Patrick Williams out 2 weeks with a foot injury. When we look in more to this article, it starts out by saying, the Chicago Bulls say forward Patrick Williams will miss at least the next 2 weeks with an acute bone edema in his left foot. That's the buildup of fluid in the bone marrow, generally the result of an injury. Williams has been dealing with injuries to his right ankle and left foot throughout the past few weeks and was wearing a walking boot while he missed Sunday's game against the Blazers. The Bulls say he will rest for a week and will be reevaluated in 2 weeks. So it could be even longer, could be up to 3 weeks, maybe even a month that we're going to be without Patrick Williams. And as the trade deadline is just around the corner, it doesn't seem very likely that he will be moved, although I didn't think he would be to begin with. But there have been some reports out there in the past, such as the Washington Wizards, that could have been interested in his services. The next thing that we saw in this was Williams, 22, has played 43 games and made 30 starts during his 4th season in Chicago. The 4th overall pick from 2020 is averaging 10 points, 4 rebounds, and about an assist and a half, while shooting 44% this season. Williams will become a restricted free agent after the season, and the Bulls already are playing without guard Zach LaVine, who has been sidelined for nearly 2 weeks with a right ankle sprain, and Torrey Craig, who has not played since December 16th with a foot injury. I'd like to hear some more updates, and hopefully we can bring them to you about Torrey Craig, as I've really missed his play on the court over the past about month and a half. It'd be nice to see him back around the All-Star break, and maybe we can get some more production out of our bench with him in the lineup once again. Injuries have not exactly been the best thing for the Bulls, as we've had Vooch out for a little bit of time, Zach out for a lot of time, Craig out for a lot of time, Lonzo out for the entire season, and Patrick Williams hasn't been playing healthy at all when he's on there and only missed a couple of games, but is now going to miss an extended period of time as well. That brings us into the second topic of today, though, with the trade deadline around the corner, which is another California trade suitor. We've talked about the Kings recently and how Kevin Huerter could be moved to the Chicago Bulls for Zach LaVine. The dream isn't over of having him moved at the trade deadline. However, we've talked heavily about the Los Angeles Lakers, but we haven't mentioned much about the Warriors when it comes to Zach LaVine. Most of the trades that we've talked about involved DeMar DeRozan or Nikola Vucevic, and this trade right here was a little bit different, but with some familiar faces of pieces coming back in the Chicago Bulls' way. It starts out by saying this tweet from diehard Chicago Bulls fans saying the Warriors could make a move for Zach LaVine. Per Bleacher Report, the Bulls would trade LaVine, Lonzo Ball, and Jevon Carter, and the Warriors would trade Jonathan Kuminga, Chris Paul, Andrew Wiggins, and Moses Moody. So it's an interesting trade indeed, because if the Warriors are going to make that next extra push, you didn't think that they would be moving Chris Paul, but he hasn't exactly been the best fit there, and you can see that he's definitely aging, and it's happening really quick. We can also see that Andrew Wiggins hasn't been the most reliable for them this season, and Kuminga and Moody are very unhappy with the amount of playing time. It's really difficult when you're a team that wants to stay really relevant and make a push every single year, and have guys like Moody and Kuminga who are in a very low developmental stage, low by meaning they're very young, and they're needing to get more playing time, and you're not able to give them exactly the minutes they need, because once the playoffs come around, those guys' minutes start to get really yanked, and they haven't been happy with the opportunities, especially Moody, and Kuminga even coming out of the starting lineup has just been a little crazy, with Podziemski still getting a lot of shine. When we look into this article, actually, it says, With the 2024 NBA trade deadline just over a week away, there has not been a lot of talk regarding Bulls guard Zach LaVine. After a rough start to the season and missing over a month due to several injuries, the trade market seems to be nearly non-existent for LaVine's services. Even though the Los Angeles Lakers were LaVine's preferred destination and seemed likely for a long time, reports came out earlier in the month that they were no longer interested in LaVine and looking to trade for Atlanta Hawks guard DeJounte Murray. More recent reports have suggested the Bulls were in talks with the Detroit Pistons, but the two sides have not been able to agree on a package. And we did a pretty deep dive here just a few days ago on the Pistons and all the players that could be involved that they said they didn't want to include right away, but stranger things have happened, and just because a team comes out initially and says they don't want to move a player, don't mean that they won't move a player if other pieces are involved. Now, the next thing that we saw in this article was, if all else fails, could a team that is struggling to stay afloat in the playoff race like the Golden State Warriors trade for LaVine out of desperation ahead of the deadline? The Golden State Warriors have had a disappointing 2023-24 season, currently sitting at 19-24. The Warriors are outside of the playoffs as a whole. In their last 10 games, the Warriors are 3-7, with one of those wins being over the Bulls. Stephen Curry has remained the biggest bright spot for the team, but he cannot carry the team by himself. And that's true. I mean, a lot of it has been done through Curry, and he is not getting any younger either. Curry, I believe, is 35 years old right now, so not exactly what you'd want a guy at that age to have to do everything himself. You definitely need some help as these guys are getting older in the league. You need some more guys to help them out because their careers, Curry could play till he's 40, but maybe he'll only play until he's 37, 38. If he has to maintain this pace, you need to get him some help ASAP if you want any chance of continuing this run that the Warriors have had. The next thing that we see here is the Warriors may be the Bulls' last chance to trade Zach LaVine this season. Even though he has looked better recently, Klay Thompson has struggled this season, and Wiggins looks nowhere near the player he was before missing 20-plus games last season. The biggest struggle for the Warriors this season is the lack of a true secondary scorer and shot creator, something LaVine could provide. Zach Buckley of Bleacher Report proposed the following trade. It is Chris Paul, Moses Moody, Corey Joseph, 2026, 2028 second-round picks, and the Warriors would get back LaVine. So this is a little bit of a different trade because this is the one that I saw most recently that came up today to talk about it. It kind of went a little bit about the diehard Chicago Bulls fans tweet, but this is the one that I was able to find online. This one seems a little bit more likely because I cannot see them moving Wiggins, Paul, Moody, like all those pieces for Zach LaVine. This is the one, but I wanted to bring this up because I really wanted to talk to you about the two different potential trades to happen. If Wiggins was to be moved to the Chicago Bulls, they'd still want value being Zach LaVine. I could see something like that happen. If they were to move Kuminga and Moody, they would want some young talent, draft picks, or somebody immediately right away to come back. I think that they'd want, honestly, Caruso to make up two of those players. When we're looking at other pieces to be involved with that as well, with Chris Paul, they would want at least somebody to be able to run a backup point guard position for them, so probably Javon Carter and a second-round pick. That would be the trade that I would think would happen. It would be absolutely crazy for something like that to happen. Those would be the pieces I think would need to happen. I don't think this trade is going to be as simple as it was put on paper to be for the Chicago Bulls. The second one is more likely what the Warriors would be willing to offer, and if the Bulls are going to take that one on is something that I'm a little bit unaware of and I'm unsure would happen. Would it benefit the Bulls? Maybe not. Would it benefit them next year? Probably. Getting rid of Zach LaVine's contract and how he's playing with the Bulls right now, and getting Chris Paul in on a contract that you're probably not going to have on the next season, getting other people in, you have Moody, a young base, a couple seconds, and maybe get some people in free agency, and that next season is a playoff contending team, and that's what you got to look at. Not this season, but next season if a trade like that were to happen. The next thing we saw on this was, for the Bulls, the main reason for this trade would be financial relief. Even though Chris Paul is owed around $30 million this season, the money is owed next season is non-guaranteed, while Corey Joseph's contract is set to expire after the season. Moses Moody would be a great piece for the Bulls to acquire, as the young 3-and-D player has a promising future ahead. Currently averaging points and doesn't say the points, but yeah, he is averaging a few. and 3 rebounds in under 20 minutes per game. Moody would become a key part of the Bulls' young core before hitting restricted free agency in 2025. The second-round picks from Atlanta may not seem like a lot, but with the Hawks looking at another period of uncertainty, those picks could have value to the Bulls. So that is true. I mean, I do like those pieces coming back for us. That trade makes sense to me. The first trade that was in that tweet, not so much sense. I wouldn't guarantee that one to happen. I would almost guarantee it not happening. The second one seems more likely, which is why I wanted to follow up with this article as opposed to the first one that was mentioned. We can look at this now, saying the biggest issue with the proposed trade would be the lack of first-round picks. While many of the Pistons' rumored trades have included a first-round pick, Detroit's not willing to move on from many of their young stars. The Lakers' packages rumored over the last couple of months included a first-round pick, but the Lakers were unwilling to include Austin Reeves, and the Bulls did not want D'Angelo Russell. That's my first time hearing that they absolutely did not want D'Angelo Russell. However, is that true or not? I'm not sure. I will not guarantee that one right here. D'Angelo Russell would make a lot of sense for the Chicago Bulls, and I won't stray away from that trade making some sense for them. The last thing we saw on this was, as the Bulls look to shift focus to the younger stars, draft capital is a must-have going forward. Unfortunately, Zach LaVine has not played much this season, has not looked great in most of the games he's played, and has up to 3 more years worth over $130 million left on this deal. With LaVine likely out through the trade deadline on February 8th, any team trading for him would be making a high-risk, high-reward move. For the Warriors, this trade would get them another scorer and shot creator in hopes of turning their season around. As the countdown to the trade deadline continues, the Warriors may become desperate to make a trade for a true difference maker like Zach LaVine. And well said there for sure. I mean, if you're hoping for LaVine to come back just after the trade deadline and really help with some shot creating if you're the Warriors, it makes a whole lot of sense. Getting Moody, a young guy, makes a whole lot of sense as well. With the contract and the injury woes of Zach LaVine and his play on the defensive end, I don't think we're going to get exactly the same value that the Bulls or us Bulls fans would hope to get back for him. So that would be a really, really ideal move if it were able to happen. Hopefully it can, and hopefully you guys tell me what you thought about everything you saw in the video today. And make sure if you liked it to go down below, like the video, comment on the video, subscribe to the channel, and I'll see you all in the next one. Signing out.